What is going on, everybody? It's the Reformation Keegan, and I'm here today with another comic review slash analysis. So, like you already know, I'm not giving you a stereotypical review of just giving you a plot summary on the entire story, but instead, I'm going to give you my point of view from an English major lens. So, this is going to be a really intriguing one because today we have Superman Secret Origin. I actually picked this up in March at Heroes Comic Shop in London, Ontario, and it was worth the trip to go because they have so many comics. Like, I can't even emphasize how many comics there are in that store. You have stuff going back decades and decades all the way to the modern product, and there's an upstairs and a downstairs. It would easily take you 2 days to go through it. And they also have another variant of a store called Villains right next to it. So there's a lot of comics in there that would take you an extremely long time to get through. But I think one day I'm going to make the trip for a couple days and just go through it all and see what else I find. But I did find the original issues of Superman Secret Origin from 2009, 2010, and this story to me lived up to the hype, and I want to discuss a couple things with it. The one thing that I really want to discuss with Superman Secret Origin is multimodality, because I think the multimodal effect in the book is what makes it. And there's a lot happening in these stories, which I'll get to in a second. But what this narrative I think does well is it combines uh, word choice, and it combines the vocabulary with the actions going on, and that's a huge thing in comics. Is if the action doesn't meet the word choice that the author chooses, then the rhetorical effect is going to fall flat. But it doesn't happen in this. Actually, I believe the art kind of falls flat in general. I'm not really a massive fan of this art style. It's just, if you can look closely, I'm not really a big fan of it. It's like too not gaudy, but it's almost like it's what's the word? It's like pastel, but kind of like animated. I don't really like the way it looks per se, but I didn't let that hinder the way that I interpreted the story, because I think the story is absolutely top notch. And this is just another alternate take on Clark's origin, but it doesn't necessarily betray anything. And the one thing that I think it does really well is it sticks to its roots, but it also gives you another expansive outlook. It adds, for example, Rudy as the Parasite, which I think is really cool. And the Parasite is a super underrated villain, not just for Superman, but in all of DC Comics. And I wish that there was a little more done on the Parasite, because I think that that character has a lot of potential going forward. He ends up going into LexCorp building, and ends up getting some of the plasma on him, on his donut, and he eats it, and then he is hungry. So that's a little bit of what happens to the Parasite in Secret Origin. But he's a super underrated villain. Anyway, I really liked also the interpretation of the characters. So characterization I thought was really well done in this. And Lex was probably the best character in this. And also, too, he ends up creating Metallo to go after Superman, right? And he puts the kryptonite in the suit, which I think was really good. And Lex just gets extremely creative. It's almost like this book took inspiration from Smallville. And I'm only a couple seasons in. I'm almost heading into season 3 for Smallville, but I can see the similarities even in Lex's tone and in Lex's delivery. I think that they definitely took something from the Lex Luthor in Smallville. And I also think that the conception of Clark in high school in this is eerily reminiscent to how he acts in Smallville. So, for example, when they're playing football, he ends up breaking Pete's arm, and you can see and you can feel Pete screaming and writhing in pain, even though he does forgive Clark. But Clark has this insecurity about his own power, and he didn't want to break Pete's arm. However, he ends up feeling this enormous guilt for that, and we can see that also in Smallville. For instance, the episode Hothead, which is in season 1, depicts this perfectly because Clark really wants to play football. And his dad, John, is really against it because he's nervous about Clark's powers getting out and also Clark really injuring somebody. And we can see this in Smallville where Clark is playing and he's not rough on purpose, but he's so powerful. He just dominates and runs through everybody. And he later finds out that football is not necessarily what he wants to do because one, he's too overpowered, and two, the politics of the game, as seen in Hothead, will ruin the passion for anybody, even Clark. So I think that this took a lot of inspiration from Smallville, just based on Clark's characterization and how Clark deals with atrocity and how Clark deals with personal grief. And I think that Smallville was really transcendent in this because you can even see through Lex how Lex is really adamant on finding out exactly how he can stop Superman. And he does that through the conception of Metallo. And I really liked the depiction of Superman versus the US, Superman versus the military, because the military is always described as, at least publicly, as a heroic entity that is there for its country and for its people. But really, the military is going against something that is actually just as heroic. And if we know anything about Lex, Lex publicly likes to be the hero. However, when someone else has more power than him or is about to achieve more glory, Lex wants to be the one to stop it. And he does that with Metallo and also through General Lane. And it's really intriguing, too, to have General Lane as a main crux of this story, trying to drive a wedge between Clark and Lois. And I really like that as well. And I think that's something that could even be expanded upon going in the future, because that, I don't want to call it soap opera, but that dramatic effect of General Lane with Clark and Lois, I think that wedge could really be explored going forward in this. So I really enjoyed that. But also, too, I really did like the way that the military was described against Superman, because they even say if you walk out of this building, you are going to be an enemy of the military in the United States. But Clark identifies as human, really, when he's on Earth, and he identifies as an American. He really represents the American way more than the military does, which also induces a sense of irony in this too. So the citation of irony used here by Geoff Johns is another big concept that I think is a main trait of Superman, because Superman is not human, yet he acts more human than everybody else. And he's very insecure because he thinks that he has to hide who he is when he's Clark, but there's nothing more human than Superman, because Superman possesses more emotion and gives more hope to everybody than any other human being has ever really in history. So I think that this is a really realistic depiction of Clark and as Superman. And you even get a little bit of Superboy in issue 2 with him discovering the Legion of Superheroes, and that there are more extraterrestrial or alien entities that are trying to do their worlds a service. So I really like that as well. And Brainiac is also an issue 2, and Brainiac wanting to protect Superman in a way was really intriguing. I did like that because Brainiac is one of the most complex villains that comics has ever seen. So I thought that was a really unique concept that Brainiac really wanted to kind of preserve Superman in a way, because Brainiac a lot of times is about preservation, and he thinks that is going to be his greater good for the universe going forward. So I really, really enjoyed that part too. So then there was a lot going on in this. I actually would recommend this as not a starting point per se, but one of the first stories that a Superman reader should read if they want to get invested in the character. This one and For All Seasons, I think, would be good places to start. I would start with For All Seasons first, though, because you're going to get 4 different points of view. But this will give you about 6 different points of view, because each story is different and each story kind of jumps. So you're getting a lot within 6 issues. I think this could have even been longer. I think this could have easily been 12 issues because you could have expanded even more on the Legion of Superheroes relationship too. So sometimes having a longer narrative is a good thing, but sometimes in English, as we say, constrained writing can really help. But I think in this case, the constrained writing is counterproductive. And don't get me wrong, this is a really, really, really good series, but sometimes constrained writing can be counterproductive because you're not necessarily fulfilling the entire narrative. And you can still do that while letting your audience speculate on what's going to happen in the following issue. You need to have your writing be more concise, and you need to have the writing also be intricate at the same time. So that's a huge thing that a lot of writers struggle with, is making their writing very intricate, but also very concise where it's not running on. And I think that this story does that, but I think there could have even been more. Like I said, this easily could have been a 12-issue series, in my opinion. So really, the less is more approach is actually not effective for Secret Origin, because it just jumps, the time jumps, which is okay, but I think that there could have been even more intricacies expanded upon with it. And to me, I think the first 3 issues I would expand upon and then leave the last 3 really how they are, because you get the last 3 and you start getting more of the drama with Lex. And I think that is good the way it is. That could have been the last 3 or 4 issues of the story. But that's just my opinion. So that was my little analysis on Superman Secret Origin in general. Just trying to give everybody an English major's point of view, and how the story is formulated when you're thinking about it linguistically. So let me know what you guys think. Have you read Superman Secret Origin, or are you thinking about reading it? I highly recommend it. It's definitely a super solid story. So my full-on recommendation is 2 thumbs up. So let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and most of all, subscribe.